He's someone who's been working in the hip hop scene for well over a decade now, worked with some of the biggest artists in the genre. So I would really like to welcome multi-platinum mixer and recording engineer Bainz. Mate, how you going?
How's it going, Drew?
Yeah. So you've been like really busy of late. You've been like just finished a project with Young Thug, is that right?
Yeah, and it's actually number one this week.
Dude, congratulations. That's so awesome.
Thank you, man.
Um, Yeah, so I guess like just to maybe do a little bit of an intro for yourself for the people on the webinar, can you just like give a little bit of a spiel of what you do, what projects, some of the projects you've worked on, and maybe like how you got into the industry and where you got to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the industry, I want to say professionally for about 12 or 13 years now. Uh, where I got into it 2006, so however long that is. I primarily now work in hip hop, but I've worked in all genres. I'm a recording engineer and a mixer. And they both kind of go hand in hand with me. A lot of people, you kind of do one or the other. For me, I do both at a pretty high level, I think. And it's also because like we're really hands on, and like the people I work with, like especially Thug. With Thug, I record and mix all his stuff, and then he has a label with a lot of artists on, so I mix all of their stuff as well. And whenever he's doing a collaborative project or anything, I'm recording because we're in the studio a lot. We're in the studio 24/7. So it's just a lot of stuff going on. So, I'm kind of, and we have a team of other engineers over here that I've kind of trained and I work with pretty closely as well. Primarily, I work with Thug's label. It's Young Stoner Life Records. There's a bunch of cool artists on there. It's Thug, Gunna, Keed, T Shine, Strick, and we got a bunch of new people as well. YTB Trench, and Funk, FM the dealer, and so it's a pretty big roster. There's about 10 or 12 artists in total on there.
Yeah, that's so amazing, and there's just so much going on, obviously, over in the scene. So, did you like study to get into the industry, or did you just buy a heap of gear and jump in the deep end? Like, how did you kind of get into audio?
Nah, I definitely I did study it, and the gear just it just looks like a lot right now, but this is years of collecting and years
It's
of
quite
being in this.
impressive.
I definitely didn't have the resources to just buy a bunch of gear right off the jump. What I actually so I actually went to SAE in Melbourne first in 2004, I believe it was. And then after that, I wanted to dig deeper into it, so I ended up going to Full Sail. I did recording arts and then did a bachelor's in music business over there. After which, and Full Sail's a really great school. You learn a lot of stuff. You get a lot of hands-on experience. So after which, I got packed all my stuff, got in a U-Haul, and rode straight to New York City. I got in that morning and like at 9 a.m. I think, and by noon I had an interview at a recording studio for an internship. I got that, started on, and kind of been at studios ever since. A year into working at other studios, I met a couple of people and we decided to set up our own little thing. And that's what's grown into this establishment that now is booked 24/7 for the past 4 years.
Yeah, that is so amazing. That's a really good story too. That just kind of going from school straight into hitting studios and just putting yourself out there. That's how you get
Yeah,
it done.
you learn a lot. Like the thing is, so school really helped me get the internship. They helped me understand things faster on the internship that other people would. But really, what you really learn is the hands-on experience, actually doing it yourself and just being at the studio and actually recording yourself. Because it's all that theory. It just sits in your head, and you have to really use it to know, like because it's like driving a car. You can read about driving a car, you can read everything, but unless you do it, unless like it has to kind of become muscle memory. Running Pro Tools is really it is like that for me. It's all muscle memory.
Yeah, and especially the high pressure sessions that you must work in, it just has to be straight away kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And, obviously in your career, like what's some of the, most favorite experiences you've had in the career that you've had in the scene?
Uh, Slime Language was a really cool one. That came out earlier this year. Punk again, this one that has just come out. Thug's the only hip hop artist to have two number one albums in the same year. So it's cool. We all kind of are piggybacking off that and get all the accolades because of him. So Much Fun before that was a fun one. Gunna's last album, 1-0, was a fun one as well. Yeah, those are pretty much the big ones that stand out to me.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's such an
we
achievement.
also, yeah, Franchise with Travis Scott, that was a big one. Oh yeah, and the whole Slime and B project, that was a lot of fun. I did that with my buddy Tizio when Thug and Chris Brown did a joint album, and Go Crazy was on that project that went on to do some crazy things.
Oh, so awesome. Um, so obviously we'll kind of, get, people obviously want to know like how, work and some of your workflows. I know when we met for the first time in LA,
Yeah.
you were telling me that, a lot of the recording that you do with like artists is in the control room and everyone's on headphones and, like why would you work like that opposed to actually having the artist behind the glass, and what's the kind of idea behind that?
It's actually crazy because like all these there's so many advancements in technology with the whole recording and mixing process, but I feel like the one step we've taken backwards is you're meant to record you're meant to have a microphone in a treated room with nothing else in it, but here we're in a room with 30-40 people inside. Everyone's talking, chatting, but it's more of like it's just a vibe, and I think it stems from a lot of these artists started out recording themselves. So then they're used to being in the control room. They're used to looking at the screen, and they're very visual. So they like to look at the screen. They like to jump in Pro Tools. They like to nudge something, do a little bit of comping on their own, and work in tandem with the engineer. And you can't do that. You don't have that much freedom. Plus, they're like sitting, like in the room and feeling like they're enjoying themselves when they're working. They don't like to be isolated in a room, in a dark room, all alone. And that's what the vibe is. So a lot of times, yes, you might get a better, in terms of a more pristine recording in the booth, but it might not have the same energy. It might not have the same vibe. It might not have the same feeling and emotion as it does when they're sitting in the room and feel like they're part of, a big party. Again, that's my job. That's where my job comes in. I have to take all those things into account. Obviously, I would rather the artist be in the booth or in the live room and me in the control room. That's the ideal situation. But I've realized engineering is not about working in the ideal perfect situation. It's about taking what you have and making it work to the best of your ability, and making sure that it translates to a good quality recording. That's really part of what my job is. So I got to make sure that yes, people aren't being loud in the room, that the microphone positioning is right. That's really important, and that I'm using the right type of microphone, that I have the right type of polar pattern selected. That if there's certain areas where the room is problematic, and we'll get into that in a minute. Kind of what I did on this last project. Then I'm picking a polar pattern that's rejecting problem areas and not you know picking up a lot of noise, that I've got like treatment wherever I can without it disrupting the artist, because you don't want to disrupt the artist's flow. You're just there to facilitate them doing what they do. You're not, you don't want to make it all about technical. If I start like doing all this while I'm recording, I'll get yelled at. You want to be as invisible as possible and as efficient as possible without getting in their way. And but when they're ready to perform, you're meant to capture that moment and capture it as best you can. You got to make sure that it's recorded at a good level, game staging is right, there's no distortion, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Wow, that's you just really need to know the tools so well to be in these high pressure environments by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it's like
And
like I feel like running Pro Tools is like driving a race car.
awesome, awesome. So yeah, going into Pro Tools and these being in these high pressure kind of like situations, you must have like a really well set up Pro Tools session. Is it something we can have a look at, and maybe you can kind of break down like how a session starts, and how you would kind of have your template laid out?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me share my screen real quick.
Awesome.
All right, so this is kind of where I start at. Um, this one's a little. I've got a folder over here that says instrument recording. It's because on this last project we recorded a bunch of instruments. So if you open it up, it's actually a folder. It's got sorry, thing is acting up. Yeah, there you go. So we did a bunch of Junos, and then I've got like the comment sections where I've got notes because I was using a different preamp where we had to switch the front input. So that's what that says there. I've written what preamps I'm using: Carbon Pre 5 and 6. We had a Moog and a Lunchbox. So it's just a bunch of empty tracks where like if the artist is like, yo, let me record here, so they'll just record. Say we record a bunch of like a big section over here, and then I'll find a decent sounding loop. And grab it, take it, lay it out. Same thing with each instrument once we're done. Sometimes we have, this is only if we're recording live instruments and stuff like that. Most of the time it's a 2-track. So what happens is we get the instrumental 2-track, I load it up onto this track that's got auto key on there, play it a bit, and then it sends it. Like I used to use mixed in key, but now I use auto key because I'm using 2 versions of auto tune. And then over here I have, so the mic that I was using for this particular session was the Townsend L22, it's called. And the reason I picked that, like we actually had a C800 and a 1073 and all that. I picked the Townsend because, like I was saying before, with the polar patterns, we'd set up, and it wasn't in a studio. We'd set up in a living room of a house with really high ceilings, a big staircase that went down. So it was super. The room had a lot of a tail, like a lot of natural reverb, if you call it. So I picked the Townsend Sphere, and if you see over here, I'm using like it's not exactly a figure 8. That would be a full figure of 8. It was this guy, and that's because you see it picks up less in front and it rejects a lot over here on each side. So we were using this guy, and then this is on an aux, and the Townsend's actually a stereo mic. So this is a stereo track, but that plugin converts it to mono. Then I've got a hardware insert, which was a CL1B. Okay, and that's just the mic through. That sends it to this track, okay, which has an instance of the auto-tune hybrid on there, which is a new plugin. And again, all of this was only possible because of the onboard DSP on the Carbon that I used. And then from there, the recording vocal bus is this guy over here. It's got a couple of things on there, just the EQ7, doing some stuff. This guy lives on my template, my recording template. It just adds a little bit of saturation to the vocals, helps push it through. A basic Mag EQ, doing some small stuff. Sometimes this could go either way. And a compressor adding level right at the end. And then there's a couple of effects up here, a delay and a verb. And you see anything that says DSP it's just so I know that those are my tracks that are utilizing the new hybrid engine. Once I'm done recording, say this was the region I recorded, I'll drag it down here, and that goes through the regular, it's got Auto Tune Pro, and that has its own vocal bus. Now, I was very careful to make sure that they're level matched, which is really important, because when you're recording and if you're punching in and there was a region before and a region after, and you're punching in the middle, the artist shouldn't feel like there's a big difference. So we took a lot of time to make sure that they're level matched, and they kind of sound similar. Obviously, they're not going to sound exactly the same. There's a lot more plugins on that. I didn't want to, just throw a bunch of plugins while I was recording. Just try to keep it as clean, simple, and low latency. That's like my biggest concern when I'm recording: low latency. When I go into the mix process, and I'll show you a little later, I get rid of all of that, and
Right
I just
on.
start over.
Yeah. And yeah, I was noticing, because you are using the Carbon, because that Townsend mic, that plugin, you're using all DSP plugins here because low latency is just such a important thing. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. I can show you the mixer over here. Any track that has the green like and you can roll down here. I always have this view open because I like to see what the delay compensation is. I'm a firm believer of recording with delay compensation on. I know some people record with it off. It causes way too many issues down the line if you do that. Record with delay compensation on, and then make sure you pick plugins that don't add too much latency in your recording template. That's a big thing. Otherwise, I get sessions that have been recorded without delay compensation, and then when you have to turn it on at some point, and everything just sounds out of time. You got to manually nudge things and all. It's a pain.
it just sounds like a massive headache that you don't need. Yeah. So
Absolutely, yeah.
we did have a little bit of a preview of your kind of vocal chain there. I can see it on the track there. Like, is there any, for the, I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to know what, any secret sauce on that plugin chain
Uh,
there for the vocal?
it's pretty basic. Cutting off some lows. There's a little bit of a de-essing situation over there. I try to make sure I'm tracking a clean vocal. So the carbon pre is really good. Really high quality pre's. I really like them. If I am at another studio and I don't have it, I usually go 1073 into a DBX 902 de-esser, and then I'll finish it off with either a CL1B or a Summit or TLA 100, just something like that. Personally, I don't use the 1176 that often, but if they have a vintage one, I would use it.
Yeah, awesome.
And then plugin wise, this guy does a lot. The vocal enhancer, it just gives you that extra push. But again, I use this only in my recording template. When I'm mixing, I'll use plugins that are a little heavier on the system resources that can't work in the recording workflow, but they sound better to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's
And yeah,
very
so there's a parallel 1176. Um, I use uh yeah 910 over there. That guy I really like as well. A little bit of a quarter note, and these you can see these guys are barely. I'll open up each one. That guy's barely sending anything there. Same thing with the plate, barely anything. Quarter note a little more, and then the quarter note. If you can see over here, the quarter note has this guy on it, and it says VSC. So it's like it's a side chain coming from the vocal track, and that's always sending. That's the only one that's up all the way. So when the vocal is playing, the delay isn't in the way. It doesn't get too muddy. The minute the vocal goes away, you hear that little bit of a tail on the delay. So it's kind of a way to cheat automating a quick little fix, so you don't have to like write it as much.
That's so cool. Yeah, no, that's really good. I like that, there's a, mix of parallel stuff as well as direct stuff and yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And then I
Yeah.
have a couple of these guys over here that they go through their own bus, but let me show you. It says there's a verb, and a little delay. So what these are they're 100% wet, and I'll like option drag it down. So a little bit of a mani over there, and then a delay over here as well. So if I ever want to throw something, instead of having to automate it on the aux, um, on a send, I would just option drag a clip down and get a quick way to get the effect going while I'm recording. All this can happen while I'm recording. So that's the biggest thing. I like doing things and picking things that I can do while I'm recording. You can't create a new send while you're recording. You can't open up a new plugin while you're recording. That's why I like to have everything over there, so I can like do stuff while I'm recording. Because in this environment, you don't get much time in between or ahead. They just want to go to the next and go to the next when they're in the zone. So most of the time I get is while they're recording. In between, I got to be really careful that my mouse isn't too loud as well, and that's when I make most of my moves.
Wow. So just lots of preparation before you're in the studio is key by the sounds of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And like you brought up that, obviously you've got the carbon there behind you. You've been
Yep.
using this as like a bit of a travel rig. What do you think of the unit? Like you obviously said you like the mic pre's, like any
The
feedback we can give, yeah?
mic pre's are great. There's 4 headphones, which is awesome. Otherwise you end up having to use a headphone splitter and carrying a separate unit. This way it's great. So I can get a pair of headphones. The artist can get a pair of headphones. If my assistant needs one, he can have a pair of headphones. If the producer needs one, he can have a set of headphones, and they can all have separate cue mixes as well. How to get into that? We'll do it. What's up, man? I'm on a Zoom real quick. Sorry, this is Keed, one of Thug's artists, walked in.
Hey, welcome to the call.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's what I really like. So now, oh yeah, also you can see like the first, because the Townsend, I know it's a little far away, but because the Townsend is a stereo mic, there's a capsule in the front and the back, and that's how it emulates the different mics. It was super easy right from the unit. I didn't have to go into Pro Tools or do anything. Just hit the link button, and I got 1 and 2 linked. So the level is matched, and it's perfect over there. And I had set, I believe it was channel 6 or 7, one of them, to be for the CL1B. So in the settings, I went and I disabled the preamp gain from that, so it just operates at line level, which is perfect. So I don't want to add anything extra to that.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. And obviously the A to D, D to A. As far as other interfaces that you've used, what do you think
Yeah,
about?
we I think what do we do? We when there was one point where we needed a couple of extra channels and someone else had an Apollo over there, so we just used the Apollo for the pre's and ran it out ADAT into this. And you just got to make sure that the clocking is right and they both are synced up and it's good to go.
Yeah.
That's really cool as well. The one feature that I guess I'm a little old school that I wish it had was AES.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Now
There's heaps of AES gear.
I know you can get converters and all of that stuff, but I just like I at my Burl I use AES. My Crane Song unit I use AES. So that's the only thing that I wish it had, but there's so many workarounds today, so it's not really a big deal. And there's enough ADAT at the back that you can get around it easily.
Yep, that's yeah, fair call. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. And obviously, with one of the great things about using the Carbon is being able to run those DSP plugins while you're recording. Obviously, the Townsend mic, it has to be a DSP plugin to be able to open that up. And
exactly.
yeah, obviously, you see benefits of actually recording with plugins. You don't like do a dry record. You've got to have the auto tune and all of that running when you do a
So
recording.
I don't. So let's go back to the screen real quick.
Yeah.
This aux, so the only thing that's actually getting recorded are these two, the Sphere and the CL1B. The auto
Yeah.
tune is not getting recorded. I don't like to record the auto tune. I'm not one of the people, those type of people that records auto tune. That's more of an R&B thing. I usually work in hip hop, that we don't have as many tracks, and even if we do, all my auto tune is grouped, so it kind of works out. With R&B, where like people are doing ad libs with a different uh and they're not tuning as hard, because I like to go back and change the auto tune. I'm not always 100% with the way it sounds. Sometimes auto tune induces clicks and pops, so I like to like keep the auto tune on there, and then I commit it when I'm mixing. Uh,
Got you.
but a lot of my friends, if I did want to do that, it's super easy. All I got to do is take this guy from here and drag it one track up, and then now the auto tune's getting recorded.
Yep. Yeah.
So because all these inserts are post fader or post tape. So whatever one level before is, that's what's getting recorded and committed to tape, um, and what's actually on the track isn't.
Yeah, so it's purely for monitoring, just so the artist has got the best
Yeah,
possible sound in their
exactly,
ears.
exactly. And then you have the option of changing it, tweaking it after the fact. Um, so that's the only thing that's actually getting recorded. If I did want to, I could go ahead and put a few more plugins on there and record it, but they're plugins. Like the good thing, the cool thing is that CL1B, that's a hardware insert. So I'm coming into the mic pre, in through the Carbon's mic pre, going to the Sphere plugin. That's doing its thing. Then I'm going out of the unit, back into another piece of hardware, and then coming back in, and then going through auto tune, and then going through delay and reverb, and all these like things like the vocal enhancer and the purple compressor over here. All of this stuff, and it's still zero latency, which is
Yeah,
crazy. That you couldn't do without the Carbon.
that's right. That's just the benefit of having DSP in the audio
Yeah.
interface. Like the
Yep.
sub millisecond latency is insane.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's so awesome. So once you've kind of done all the recording with the artist, I can see obviously you kind of move tracks down as you kind of finish
Yeah.
recording it, and you're kind of basically pasting it across the timeline to kind of create the track.
hmm
What's the next step then? You've got to do some session prep before you start mixing, or what
Yeah.
would be? Yeah,
I don't usually do that in the same session with the artist, but when I do it, so it's pretty cool the way I have it set up. So I just come right to the top of the session, and I'll hit Shift Command N. Okay, and that opens up this window over here on the right. You can see that new tracks thing, right?
yeah, got that.
Okay, cool. So I go all the way over here, and I go to track presets, and it says Bainz, mixed by Bainz. Where was the last one I just made? Okay, yeah. So I just hit that guy over there, and I hit create. Now it's gonna. I apologize in advance. It's gonna give me a couple of error messages for UAD plugins not being there because I don't have them. I don't
The
have my
satellite.
satellites hooked up,
Yeah.
but we'll get through that. And then it's actually pretty cool the way it does.
Yeah. You've spent some time doing some track presets too, by the way. That list looked quite in
Oh
depth.
yeah, yeah. It when that feature came out, I have friends who've gone way crazier with it. I've just like kind of set up like the this is everything in one. But I have friends who've gone in and dialed in each specific thing like really crazy. But this is kind of like a basic everything in one go. Um, and folders really helps with that. And you'll see over here as well because like when you first open up the template, it does look a little crazy, but like it's because of the folders that I'm able to really get, do it without it, so it starts with like that. That's what it looks like. Okay, these are like my one shot effects that I have over here. So I just like I was calling it the vocal throws and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
just get this out of the way because that comes really like right at the end. And then here, so this is the whole template. Like I can minimize that, it all goes away.
Yeah. So
So
you're
here,
holding these templates in a folder essentially.
exactly. Then I have
Awesome.
instrumentals. I have instruments and vocals. Okay, and then the mix bus stuff and the VCAs. So kind of it's organized chaos.
Yep. Exactly.
So,
That's the great thing
so
about folders.
yeah. So the mix bus has like everything kind of ends up to here: drums, instruments, vocals, all effects, and uh, these all go out individual outputs, and then they hit my summing mixer, and then they hit all a piece my piece of analog hardware depending on what I'm using, and they come back in to my burl, and then my burl sends it AES to my interface.
Right on. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you're in the mix, I guess there's been so many comments coming in, by the way, that everyone's so stoked seeing your template and everything you got. I guess a lot of people are really interested in kind of mixing this style of music. Like what are your kind of steps to get into it? Do you focus on certain instruments first, or vocals, or
So
what's the workflow there for mixing this scene?
usually I'd like to do a vocal cleanup first. That
Yep,
includes fades, a lot of because we record in the control room, there's a lot of clicks and pops and door slams and stupid things like that you have to really get into Isotope R. And shout out to Isotope. They're a great company and they make like RX has like changed the game for me. Like it's literally like
absolutely.
going into Photoshop and you see the waveform and you see where the click is, you see where the mouth smack is or anything it could be. And with the paintbrush, you just get it out of there using the right tools. So that's usually the first step before I add plugins, before I do anything, so that the system still is very snappy. It runs quick. There's not much latency. Then once I start adding all my crazy plugins, things tend to slow down a little bit. So I like to do a lot of the vocal editing stuff first, but just the basic editing. I'm not really mixing right now. I'm
Right.
doing clip gaining. I'm manually de-essing. I do a lot of clip gaining and a lot of clip effects. And then for those that don't know, clip effects is like so if I hit option 6, it opens up this little window over here. Now, say I have a little region over there. Okay, break it. Say that was S. Oh, okay. I just hit the number 4 on my keyboard, and you see what it's doing. That's a quick DS. 3 is doing that. 1 is like they're all slightly different variations of things. That's if I have a plosive. I would start there. Now again, I'm not saying that's it. That's gonna work every time, but I have a starting point, and then once I have a starting point, I just literally go in there and see what it is. Tighten it, listen to the sound. Might be a problem there, and I'm just dipping it out real quick.
Yeah. And this is happening, for some people that have never seen clip effects before. This is obviously happening on a clip by clip level, all pre-insert, isn't it?
Exactly. This is the first thing. So I'm doing a lot of clip gaining, a lot of like up and down over there, and the way you get that to work with the shortcuts like that, that's like a because normally when you hit 1 through 5, it's the zoom presets. But if you
Yes.
go in, am I playing? Oh, why it's not? I guess because the screen share is on, it's not letting me get into the settings. But oh no, sorry, there's a window open over here. That's what it is.
Ah,
Yeah.
yep.
So if you go to preferences over here, and I think it's an operation. No, it's in editing. Yep, there it is. 1 to 5 number keys control clip effects presets. So if
Yep.
you like, usually it defaults to zoom. I'm pretty quick with zooming and jumping around on the keyboard without the 1 through 5. So I set it to be this. Now you got to be careful that you don't accidentally hit any of these buttons, which does happen from time to time when you're moving around that quick. But yeah, this is a big part of like the first step of what I'm doing. Getting rid of any boominess, any problems that's there in the bottom. And basically I do a lot of de-essing like this,
All
clip
right,
by
so you're
clip.
using the
I'm
clip
using
effect
clip
for the
effects
DS.
first to de-ess it. Yeah, it
Right.
just I'm still using de-essers after that. I still use Soothe. I still use the Weiss one. Uh, there's one called Spectral Shaper by Isotope that's really good as well. But this is always like the first move, because you can really go syllable by syllable and be very specific with it. That's why I like to do that.
Yeah. All right, cool. So there's lots of cleaning up and then basically into the mix now
Yeah,
process, I guess.
and then I'll like add plugins, like I'll add the soothes on there, I'll add a bunch of things. Then on like the vocal. So okay, yeah. So then I kind of, I'll do a little bit of a vocal mix. I get my analog chain in there. I've got this compressor from DW Fern I really like. Um, I've got like some analog de-essers as well if I haven't recorded it with it. I've got a Mag EQ, a couple of tube EQs, just depending on what it is. And that's the important thing. Like, everything doesn't work all the time. Each thing will work like 60 or 70% of the time. So it's about determining what works for that specific thing. And then when I'm mixing, this is just me. I always start with the 808. I lay a solid foundation with the 808, get it to where I know I want it to be. That's making sure there's not too much rumble in the bottom, um, getting a lot of parallels in there. I love parallel distortion on my 808s. It just helps it cut through on smaller speakers. Um, just I've got a few different parallels that I run with the 808 without giving away my whole recipe. I start with that. Then if there's a kick, what I'll do is I actually go in and every time the kick and the 808 hit at the same time, I'm physically drawing down just the front half of the 808, just so that the attacks don't stack on top of each other, and that's how you get more how you're able to get both of them louder.
Yeah.
So we're doing that, and then yeah, kicks, 808s, and then the rest of the drums, hi-hat, snares, get a bit of a groove going. Then sometimes I'll see the vocal with that, and then if there's music, I mean, there obviously is music, but the other instruments, the melody and stuff like that, I'll start dialing that in, and then I get the vocals and I start carving out space for the vocals in the music, because it's all like for me, the two most important things is the 808 and the vocals, and I got to make sure that both of them shine, especially in this genre.
Yeah.
And
Do
then
you,
sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah. Look, are you doing? I know a couple of engineers are starting to do this now, like especially on their mix bus. It's actually somewhat like mastering while they're mixing, or you're kind of like having a bit of a mastering train and you mix into that. Is that something you do as well?
Yeah. So I was gonna say, so at this point, it's not on. It's not on. I just do a
Okay.
little bit of. I'll do a little bit of things, and the mix bus isn't really on. Just the analog stuff is on. Now that things are sitting good, now I'll start putting on things. I'll start putting on the. It starts with what is it? So it starts with, sometimes I'll use like the I have the McDSP APB, so I'll use the MUX limiter. Other times it's usually that first, or an EQ or something, and then it's a compressor, usually like a SSL type compressor with the side chain on for the lows, just so that it doesn't go too crazy with the low end. And yeah, I would. Then what else is there after that? There's a compressor. There might be another compressor after that. and then something like a back CQ maybe, um, maybe a massive passive or something like that. Just a couple of EQ things. Finishes off with the ozone on that track, and that's just doing very small things, a little bit of uh, width stuff, a little bit of saturation, a slight bit of multiband, nothing crazy. The mix is usually down on that, and then from there, everything goes to an audio track, um, and that's where I record it on. I call it the print track, and then that track has a limiter on it, and then that goes to another track. So I'm always recording two tracks, a limited version and a non-limited version. So I don't have to go back and make my mix for my print for mastering. It always happens at the same time.
Right on. Okay, and obviously you've got that mix of analog gear and plugins, and do you think that, should people just run out and get a whole heap of gear now, or I know Andrew Sheps is kind of moving to a totally in the box workflow.
I have a lot of friends that are moving completely in the box. I don't know if I'm going to be one of them. Um, you know, well, with this album in particular, it was the first time we did stuff in the box because we mixed the whole album, and then Thug, when he heard it, he was like, it just felt too different for him than what he was used to, because he also heard it like pretty late. So he was like, he wanted to go back to the roughs. So a lot of the roughs were the tracking session roughs, and he just wanted it to sound a lot raw. He just wanted it to have a raw sound. So I just had to do what he wanted. So with that, we went back in the box, but mostly I'm at least using the APB, and I just like the way the way it's done. I think if there are some challenges when it comes to hardware. You got to make sure that there's no latency. You got to make sure that phase is okay and stuff like that. But that's what engineering is. That's a part of engineering. So I feel like I'm competent enough of an engineer to make it work. Can you get the same place with just in the box? Yeah, you probably could. There's the plugins are getting a lot better. There's better resolution. There's a lot of cool companies out there. Black Rooster Audio. Uh, um, what's it called? Acoustica is a big one. And yeah, you can, but it takes long. It takes a little longer. I can get to where I want to get to faster with using a hybrid. You get the
Yeah.
best of both worlds.
Yeah, the best of both worlds. That's what I was kind of
Yeah.
getting at. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, shout out to Colin from McDSP because
Oh,
his gear
yeah,
is
he's a genius.
insane.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolute mad scientist.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And the APB is like just it just this is one I can give out. The chicken head is all my like on my last the last thing on my all my vocals go through is a chicken head compressor from Colin, and that just smooths it out. It just doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like compression. It's just like really really nice sounding uh, piece of gear. I'll call it gear or plug-in, whatever it is, but it
Yeah.
definitely is. It sounds like what analog would sound like.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, mate, that's great. Look, there's been so many questions that are coming through now. We should probably take a chance to, kind of start answering a couple of these questions. I've got someone here, yeah, we were just talking about gear and plugins. We've got someone that was asking, what pieces of gear would you take on remote island to record and mix your artist if you could choose?
Uh, for recording, I've gotten so comfortable with using the Townsend mic. I would pick that, maybe a CL1B, and the Carbon. Um, and maybe might have a C800 there if it was. See if it's an island and it's not treated well, then the C800 isn't going to do good. If it's a good treated room, then I'll always pick the C800 or a 251. I like my summing mixer, my Neve 5059. I love it. The APB. I also have a Fusion SSL Fusion I like, and the Portico Master Bus processor. That's really cool as well. Uh, I really like the sound of my Burl Bomber ADAC. That's the last thing it hits before it goes back in the box. And yeah, my computer and my plugins. Maybe a UAD satellite. There's a few UAD plugins I still use quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've got a satellite as well, and that and the
Yeah.
carbon for me is the best combo.
Yeah, So I would do okay. So now that's a lot to take with to an island. If I had to really strip it down,
Yeah.
I would say the carbon, the APB 16, um, and probably a satellite. And that's what I usually do when I travel to Atlanta and stuff. It's usually the carbon, uh, the APB, and a satellite. Like
Yeah.
at least an octo, if not two.
Yeah. You can do everything you need to do with just that kind of thing.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And we had another question of, top three plugins that are a must. I know what my choices are, and they're very similar to yours. RX or something like that is a have to have. What about
Yep,
yourself?
RX, Soothe, and I would say Ruby from Acoustica,
Yeah,
which is
that's yeah,
an emulation of the Fern EQ.
yeah. I just got into using Soothe, and I was just blown away out of the gate. It's just
Yeah, no, that thing is great.
yeah, so good. We had someone going for an inspiring producer who hasn't used Pro Tools yet but want to now. What would be your advice for kind of starting out with Pro Tools?
Um, just learn signal flow. You know, learn the way the buses work, the auxes work. Learn how to do routing, and you'll be good. The way the instruments works. Start by using a MIDI track and an aux track, just so you understand how the routing works instead of just jumping to an instrument track. Then you can do the instrument track afterwards as well. But just understand the way routing works in Pro Tools, and you'll be good. I recently started mixing in Atmos, and the first time I saw it, I was like, whoa, what is all of this? And it literally took me 5 minutes to understand what was going on. And then, it was routing. That's all you need to understand. If you understand how routing works, you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. That
And then,
Atmos is definitely
yeah,
blowing up now, isn't it? It's
yeah,
such a big thing
absolutely.
in
Yeah.
music. Hey.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, just how to use the different modes, how to use the different tools, what each tool does. And really it's just three of them that you need to know: the trim tool, the separation tool, and the grabber. And then with the modes, shuffle gets used a lot, slip gets used a lot, spot we're not in post-production, so you won't really need to use it as much. And grid, and I always work in relative grid, um, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely a
Yeah.
good one to go. Yeah. Yeah, more questions about Pro Tools, I guess, ways to get fast just keep using it.
Practice,
How did you become a Pro Tools
practice,
ninja? Just practice a lot?
practice a lot. So what I would do is the 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 first, like, I would literally just take a bunch of two-track instrumentals and put them in Pro Tools and practice getting the tempo. Like, which with I don't like using the tap. I would like find a 4-bar loop, Command I, tell it that's what the loop is, and then undo that and put it in. But that was the first thing I did. That was a lot of that, and then just get used to like get comfortable, get a nice chair where your arms are comfortable, get a mouse they're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be a trackball. It could be a track. I like the trackball, but sometimes I use the other mouse when I'm just feeling different. Just a regular thing. About just it's just what you're comfortable with, and just know your modifiers.
Yeah.
Know what control, option, command do, what they do together. It actually makes a lot of sense if it's just one button over. Doing one button over does one extra thing, and just everything is laid out really well. I would say, yeah, a big thing for me initially, I did the certification. So if you read that 101 book, it'll really help getting going. In fact, I want to read it for the new, just all the new features that they keep adding. I get to know them with the new quick keys that come about. There's one that I use a lot now, with clip gain, like, which is to say I have, it's on this screen, but it's I think it's Control Option X, and what that does is if you're clip gaining a bunch, it just smooths the line. Like, it just creates a breakpoint, and that's the thing. I'm learning new quick keys every day. Every time I see like the shift 1 2 3 4, like that was a new thing that came about to like bypass inserts and sends. That you just want to bypass everything, like 2 and 3, that just does all of that stuff. Like that you can never do that before.
Yeah.
It's every version. I like try to see what's new in the version, what the new quick keys are, because that's a lot of times it's something that you're like, and like me especially, I like when I started, I was like, oh, I wish they had that feature. I wish they had that feature. It usually gets added by a version or two after you're wishing for it.
That's it. Yeah, we definitely are listening to people and adding more and more just
Yeah,
things that make your, I guess, life a little bit easier. They're not absolute game changers, but it speeds
yeah.
up your day. Like time's money for you, isn't it?
No, exactly. Yeah, you just have to. The quicker you can do something, the faster you can move on to the next song, and the faster the happier the artist is going to be with you.
Yeah, awesome. And we've got a couple of people obviously interested in the carbon now, and that they're saying, would you recommend DSP or getting into working with DSP plugins and microphones and interfaces?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I'm actually trying to get just for this album. Because the Carbon was the first time, not the first time, but like in recent, I have a HD native system in my regular studio, like the computer behind me. And after working with the Carbon, I was like, yo, I rented a HDX card for my regular system, and it was night and day. It was crazy. I was blown away by the performance. So I definitely think that it helps both in the recording and in the mix process. It just gives you a much more stable system.
Yeah. And yeah, that's important for the sessions that you're in, stability and that
Yeah,
persistency, day in, day out, it's going to work.
exactly. And also, like, I'm not gonna badmouth any other interfaces out there, any other companies, but I do think that the quality of the converters on here are a lot better. They don't like I feel like the top end, it doesn't shine through on one of the popular ones. With this, it just really shines. It's nice. Really good quality converters and preamps.
Yeah. We're actually doing a bit of a competition here in Australia at the moment, and I think Hannah just put it in the chat. So anyone that is interested in Pro Tools Carbon, we're actually going to give one away. So that should be in the chat, and you'll have
All right.
the chance to win a Carbon. So make sure you enter that competition for everyone on the call. So many questions are coming in, man. It's so hard to catch up with all of them. There's a couple of SAE students on the call. They're so stoked to know that you obviously went to SAE in Melbourne as
Yep.
well.
SA Melbourne Road on what was it, Normandy Road.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, near the
Yep.
yeah, that's right. Near the
Yeah,
old
it was.
Montague Bridge where the trucks keep crashing into it.
Yeah. It was. What year was that? I went to SAE Melbourne, and it was 2004 or 2005. I can't remember. But yeah, it was cool. I'm still like in touch with one of my professors from there. His name is Richard. I remember the last thing he like told me was, oh, the student becomes the master, which was really cool because he was so knowledgeable, and I would always go and pick his brain and try to figure stuff out. And, from there I went to Full Sail after that, which was just another really cool school, and just learned a lot of stuff. And I
Yeah.
feel like because I went to SAE before Full Sail, I kind of got the upper hand at Full Sail, and I ended up graduating valedictorian with a 4.0 GPA at Full Sail because of that
Wow.
little extra hand up I had.
That's amazing. Yeah. So we had one of someone who goes to SE at the moment. They were like, what five pieces of advice or what advice would you give to, if you could go back, what would you say to young Bainz today?
Wow. Uh, just don't give up. Keep doing what you're doing because it'll work out eventually. There was a lot of ups and downs. It wasn't. I was always really fast. I didn't go the big studio route. I did initially, but I set up shop on, like, we did our own thing very early. So it was a lot more of like getting your own clients and stuff like that, not relying on someone else. There's a lot of freelancer. There was a lot of times where I didn't know when my next gig would be or whatever. But you just stick with it and just keep doing good work, keep working on your craft, and it'll happen at some point.
Yeah, right on. And we've got I guess, recording in the studio, tips for setting up a vibe with the artist coming into the studio. Like what's your process to get the vibe going?
Yeah, make sure that they feel comfortable. That's the most important thing. Get the tech. You should know the technical stuff so well that it doesn't interrupt them or doesn't get in the way of them. Your template should be ready. The minute you hear them vibing to a beat, you need to talk to the producer and be like, yo, send me that right away. Find the key right away. When you start, the first thing I do is I clip gain an instrumental down at least 7 to 8 dB. And now a lot of people say they just turn the volume down. It's not the same because you want your waveforms to kind of all look uniform. So visually, otherwise you'll have a vocal waveform that's tiny and the beat will be that fat, and you can't look and see whether hook is coming or whatever. Because if you pay attention to waveforms, you can look at it and know what part of the song you're in. So clip clean that down. Make sure it's on the grid. That's really important. There's always a little bit of dead space in the beginning. Delete that. Make sure the things on the grid, the tempo is in there and the keys in there. Those are really important things. Key, tempo, grid, clip gain. Those are starting off with recording. I think those are really important things to know. Once you do that, all your gain staging down the line will be easier on you.
Yeah.
Clip gained it down. You're not going to run hot vocals. You're not going to risk distorting a vocal on the way in. Because once you have distortion baked in, it's really hard to get rid of that. It's damn near impossible. And a lot of sessions I get to mix have that, and I'm just having to deal with it.
Yeah. RX is good, but it's only so good kind of thing.
There's only so much you can do, and anytime you go ahead and declip or whatever, there's some sacrifice you're making.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of guys, there's obviously a lot of students here as well, and they're obviously talking about, how to get into internships or, once you've left school, like, what's the best advice to try and get your foot in the door there with internships or studios or whatever?
Get a good resume and reach out to engineers and artists and stuff. A lot of them are personal, go to studios and like see they all have internship opportunities. And when you're at the internship, be the best damn intern they've had. If your job is to clean the bathrooms and clean the floors, do it. Be the best person that's ever done that, and you will advance. That's what I did when I was an intern. I was paying attention to detail. I tried to be the best intern I could, and then I was promoted really quick to assistant. Be the best damn assistant you can. Be the best GA you can, and then be the best damn engineer you can right off the bat. Because you don't want to get comfortable. You just kind of want to keep going and striving to get at the next level. Because there's 100. I mean, not even 100. There's thousands of other people every month. Like I saw that at Full Sail. They were pumping out like 150 to 200 kids every month because they're like a monthly program. So there's a lot of competition, a lot of people out there. There's not too many people in my grade. In my class at Full Sail that are still doing audio just because it's tough out there. Kudos to the few people that are there's very few people that are doing it. There's like 3 or 4 of us that are doing it on the same level.
Yeah, so it's a hustle. You've just got to really just focus on what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, here's a great one from obviously a local producer here. They've got any advice for trap producers in Australia? Do you think the genre is going to take off here, or do you believe it's most of it's overseas?
Yeah, no, I think it's doing well there because like I know like Gunna was there right before the pandemic, and he really loved it. He was telling me it's awesome, and I hope we were out there. Hopefully by next year when things open back up. I'd love to go out for shows over there. When I was in Australia, it was dance music was a lot bigger, but I think it'll catch up.
Yeah,
It's global now. It's like this year hip hop has been on top of the charts for a long time.
Yeah, no, it's there's just so many new artists coming out. It's hard to kind of keep on top of it, and
Yeah,
yeah, if you guys come up to Australia, man, you welcome anytime. You guys can come hang for sure.
yeah.
Um, just yeah, just trying to get through all these questions here. There's just so much. Uh, Someone wants to know about like obviously you got some amazing speakers behind you. What speakers do you recommend?
Um, I I have the Ocean Wave HR 3.5s. I have the Barefoot Microman 26s and the Amphion 118s. I use them all for different things, and I know them really well. So find something that you like and make sure you know it really well. Because I like the Barefoots because they're loud. They give me a lot of low end, give me a lot of energy. Um, the Ocean Waves are very real. They're clear. Um, I can feel like what something's going to sound like on mains. The Amphions tell me the truth. If they're good at my Amphions, I can push the low end a lot, but the Amphion's are going to tell me when I pushed it too far. The barefoots won't tell me that. They'll just keep going. They'll keep pumping, and I won't know. So I always come back to the Amphions, and I can tell when I know it's good on the Amphions, I know it's going to translate well everywhere. But I use the barefoots when I need it, when I need stuff to be a little louder, a little more hyped. And I'm going to be getting probably the Amphion 218s at some point, and also the PMC, the new PMC 62s.
Wow. Awesome. Well, man, that's great. We've had so many awesome questions come in. I think we should, we're kind of getting to the top of the hour, so we should wrap things up. So thank you so much for your time, man. There was just so much valuable information
Absolutely. Thank you
there
for having me.
No, it was awesome. No, I think everyone on the call has definitely benefited something and got a little bit of insight into your world. So we totally appreciate that. And definitely shout out to Store DJ as well for putting this event on. If anyone on the call wants to see Carbon or see some stuff with Pro Tools, they've got demo units there. And also don't forget to enter the competition. You can, win yourself a Pro Tools Carbon. It's definitely a good investment. Yeah. So Bainz, thank you, mate. We really, really appreciate it. And dude, I can't wait to get over to LA and catch up again soon. So thank you.
Likewise, yeah. I'm gonna pick your brain on a bunch of Pro Tools things.
Oh, you got it, man. No problem.
All right, thank you, Store DJ. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, Drew.
All right, man. We'll catch you later.
All right, cheers, guys.
See ya.
Thank you, everyone.